Okay.
Well, it's 9:30 and it's time on our schedule for a solid waste workshop. Bob, you taking this? Who's running the show?
Morning, Commissioners. Bob Howard for the record. This is the time we schedule for a workshop to talk about funding our solid waste capital improvements. And we have Travis Pyle from Great West Engineering here, and he's here to give us some information that we can think about. And he has some other folks with him. I'll let him introduce them.
Okay.
I'll turn it over to Travis.
Travis, the floor is yours.
Stand up at the podium? Or?
Wherever you'd like.
Yeah, I'm fine here if that works
Okay.
for you guys. Yeah, so Travis Pyle with Great West Engineering. We helped you guys with the 10-year capital improvements plan. And so we've been trying to help solid waste figure out some ways to come up with some funding. We looked at some grant funding and we weren't super successful there. But then started to talk with USDA RD and looked at some opportunities with getting a revenue bond. So that's an option to look at. And so really today we would just like to have some dialogue, talk about the process. You guys are, I'm sure, very familiar with bonds. And so know that process. This being a revenue bond, it doesn't require that super majority of 50% approval by the community. And so John Lynn from USDA RD Coeur d'Alene office is here. And then Kevin Ryan should be online, and he's from the BOCC RD office. And then also, if Craig Erickson dials in, he's our grant administrator.
He's in.
Great West. So really, it's just sort of a, John, you can kind of talk about maybe the process and what you do, and then we'll start some dialogue with that.
All right, I'm John Lynn. I'm the area specialist up here for USDA Rural Development. And we have a funding program that we do mostly water and waste systems with, but we can do solid waste with it. We haven't done a lot in the state of Idaho just because it doesn't score a lot of points in our system. Water and waste system is really what we do. We help fund the water treatment plant here for the city of Sandpoint 5 or 6 years ago. There is a grant component with our funds. Now, whether you would score enough points to get grant money is another thing. I can't tell you that right now. It depends on the funding year and what other projects we have submitted for that year. Like Travis said, our money takes a revenue bond. State of Idaho requires some kind of a vote of the people for districts, municipalities to borrow money for more than a year. And we can do a revenue bond in two ways. You know, we can have the vote of the people, or you can go to a judge and get a judicial confirmation for a revenue bond. I mean, that's entirely up to the entity, whatever they want to do.
It's always popular.
So I've got one question for you. Do you have like a revenue stream? Do you charge people for solid waste in the county? Okay, so then a revenue bond would work, and you would pay for that by obviously increasing rates and submitting the project.
We just did that.
We work with a lot of communities in North Idaho, helping them pass revenue bonds. We're familiar with most of the bond attorneys in the area, and we work with them all. So that's entirely your decision which way you want to go there. We can attend public meetings for you, explain how our funding works. I believe we could probably go up to 40 years on a revenue bond if you want to do that. I mean, obviously you need to match it kind of to what the improvements are and the useful life of those improvements. So again, it's a pretty simple application process. You know, we need an engineer on board, whether it be a county engineer. I mean, it's someone to put the plan together and get it stamped and then go through the regulatory agencies. I believe DEQ probably has the jurisdiction on these types of projects. So Kevin down in our Boise office used to work for DEQ, and he actually did a bunch of solid waste projects. So he's real familiar with the DEQ process, and we can bring that to the table to help you along the way. We basically come for free. Right now, our market rate is like 2.25%. Okay, that changes every quarter, but this is the lowest I've ever seen our rates. You know, they hit 2.5, you know, several years ago, but we're at 2.25 right now. So again, you apply to us for the funding. You can apply anytime. We don't have like, you have to apply the first of the year or anything. So you can apply anytime. The only time we really don't have money is right after the end of our fiscal year, which would be September 30th. And the money won't flow till probably the end of November. You know, we don't get our allocation until then unless, you know, something crazy happens. And that seems to be the norm these days. So anyway, we're a federal agency. This is our mission, is to help rural communities with these types of services. So again, I'm right down in Coeur d'Alene. I've worked with the city of Sandpoint. We're doing a project over in Priest River, Cabinet Mountain Water District. We just funded their big expansion project. So we're very, very familiar with how the system works here in North Idaho and what we need to do. So again, I'm available for questions. I'll pass out my card here to you guys, but you know, it's your decision, you know, on how you want to approach this. But again, we're probably one option out there, but you would have to pass a revenue bond to make it work.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think one thing to add to that is that through the 10-year capital improvements plan, there was a financial assessment, and you guys were proactive in increasing the rates. And so how that plays out in
Yeah, I was just
additional
gonna ask,
increase would be-
we have already increased the rate, and I don't know if that counts towards the revenue bond or.
Well, again, you know, I mean, we're going to look at your ability to repay.
Sure.
Okay.
So you're gonna look at that and say, okay, based on this, based on the amount and the time, you need to be at this number.
Right, exactly. You know, I mean, we'll look at your O&M expenses, you know, any reserve for short-lived assets, you know, that you need to fund in the next 10 to 15 years, and then the debt service.
Okay.
Okay, and that would all come from, you know, what you guys submit to us and your engineer and the plan moving forward.
And we've got plans already for the improvements we want to do, right, Spencer? Are those pretty much finalized?
Oh, yeah, all done.
It was a joke.
That would be great.
You know, again, you know, one of the, I don't know, what we require would be an open bid.
Sure.
Okay, so we would send out the bid package, advertise for 3 or 4 weeks, whatever you guys decide. We'd open the bids, the responsive low bidder would be awarded the contract.
Okay.
Plus Davis-Bacon, plus.
No Davis-Bacon in our money. Okay, we do have American Iron and Steel, okay, but there's no Davis-Bacon with our funding. We're the only federal agency that doesn't have that. And don't ask me why, because I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't even want to bring it up.
No, we don't want to advertise that a lot. But yeah, so there is no Davis-Bacon with our money.
And that just saved us 30%.
So with your financial review, would that be completed through like the engineering plan, or is there a separate submittal that we would need to do besides our engineering plan?
Well, we would require, you know, I think it's 4 years of audited financial statements, which I'm sure you have. And then we would look at the engineer or internally for a cost estimate on the project.
Yeah, we've got that.
So we would base our underwriting on that cost estimate. And again, the O&M would look at, you know, 3 or 4 years of O&M, and then what you project into the future, and look at that, and then your short-lived asset list.
So I think we may need to update our engineer's estimate, because we did have an engineering estimate on the improvements already, but we're taking a look at it again to make sure we're current.
Those were pretty high altitude estimates.
Right.
And we're used to dealing with that. I mean, you know, we're at this stage, you know, we expect numbers probably higher than what the bids are actually going to be, which, you know, you can adjust your rates accordingly. Sure. Now, we'll come back with a model and say, okay, this is what we think you should be charging. But again, we don't dictate what you charge. You know, we just run our payment.
We just have to be able to pay the bill.
Yeah, that's right. That's all, you know, once we're done. And then our loan servicing would be like any other loan that you would take out, you know, would require yearly financial statements. And that, you know, we'd come up and do a review every 3 years, make sure the facilities in place, that type of stuff.
Sure. Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question. So in terms of the engineering, do we have to put together, the county put together a PER, preliminary engineering report?
Yeah, it's a PER facility plan, we would like to look at the whole facility, and where we're improving and why we're improving it and what's the needs and that type of stuff. An alternative analysis, we've looked at this, this and this and.
Yeah. And we've got a lot of that in our capital improvement.
I think that they probably.
I think we're probably pretty close to being ready to go.
If not already there.
Yeah.
Again, this is, we're, I'm gonna say we're new at this, but we haven't done a lot of solid waste
Well,
projects.
listen, we're happy to help you out with it.
Yes, I mean, I would be.
We would love to put our hand in that pot and help you
Yeah,
out.
so again, I think we're a viable option for you. We try to be very easy to work with. And those types of things.
And you're a federal agency,
I'm a federal agency.
and you try to be easy to work with. I'm not understand the connection.
Well, I'm also a North Idaho boy.
Yeah, okay.
So I grew up in Wallace and
Ruin their reputation.
I know it.
so I'm familiar with the people and the communities and all that.
We have I can't even read it.
Craig Harris.
Craig's got his hand up. Go ahead, Craig.
John, would you require that an environmental report also be prepared for this application?
Yeah, this would be a NEPA review. And depending on what we're doing, it could be a CADX with no report. It's probably going to be a CADX with a report. I don't see anything that's going to elevate this up to an environmental assessment. All federal money requires a NEPA report. And you can do that internally. You can do that through Great West. You can, however you want to do it. It's basically just sending out consultation letters to the various federal agencies.
Mm-hmm.
Don't build it in a floodplain, okay? And, don't build it in wetlands or anything crazy like that. Make sure that where we're building is acceptable for that.
Yeah, and this is a pre-established location, so.
But again, it shouldn't be an arduous process at all.
Yeah. Anyone
I
else?
just, excuse me, commissioners, I just wanted to add that process would take a little more than 30 days to complete. And, unless there are substantive comments that would require a response, I doubt that would be the case, but I just wanted everyone to be aware of that. So.
Sure. Well, we're to the point now, even if we apply today, if they're short on funding after September 30th, we're quickly approaching that. If we were able to get this thing funded during the winter, at least it would allow us to start at the beginning of spring.
Okay.
And that would be the hope, I think, as far as the construction window goes.
Well, again, you can only pass revenue bonds in 2 dates in Idaho, November and May.
Yep.
So.
Yes, we'd have to get it on the November ballot, which we can do. I've already talked to the clerk about it.
Okay, yeah. It's
We'd have to be in a place where we can do it.
That would be probably fairly tough, wouldn't it? Don't we have to have public, I guess we don't have to. but-
I think probably the end of August is probably your drop dead date
Mhm.
for a November election.
Right. And we would want to have some public hearings or public meetings just to go through it.
Information.
Right, yeah, that's pretty typical, of communities. They'll have 3 or 4 public meetings to educate their constituents, and all of Butler County is going to be voting on this and strategically place them throughout the county.
But we've already increased fees. We've already made the argument as to why. And most of the people that have heard the argument get it now. So I don't think that's too shocking.
Well,
It's just a
again,
matter of-
so if you don't have to increase the fees, if you've already done that, then that's a lot easier sell
Right.
Right.
than telling them we're going to increase your fees again.
And we may still yet have to increase a little bit more. We've looked at this a couple of different ways, but I don't think it's a tough sell because it's not something we can avoid. We haven't really invested in that infrastructure since 1996. The amount of population has not doubled, but the waste has doubled. So it's not like we can just say, well, then never mind.
Again, I mean, we'd love to put a project together and work with you guys and make it happen.
Go ahead.
So I know we're in unusual times, And so there might be options available that traditionally wouldn't be available. There's, local banks are offering 2.5% right now.
It's hard to get them to invest in a solid waste facility
Yeah, they don't want to repossess
see it.
garbage.
because we've looked at it, we've actually approached them already.
See, and I've had really good luck because they know it's guaranteed revenue.
Yeah, you'd be
Yes.
surprised. They like that collateral and that collateral's not that valuable to them, so.
It's a revenue stream that is it should be, but the difference between it being a tax revenue versus a fee revenue is it can go like this, whereas the taxes are more like this. So, I mean, it is a harder sell to banks and to lenders that are conventional, not,
Right, and again, for the county to borrow money for more than a year takes a
that's
bulk.
correct.
I mean,
Either way you go.
yeah,
But we have talked to some of the local lenders that we do our leases through for some of our equipment. And they just didn't not get them
It
excited.
doesn't fit the lease purchase program.
Craig's got his hand up.
Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, one more process question, I guess. John, and this is for the crew from RD again, would you require the county to have a bond counsel for this project?
I think it would be prudent if they have a bond counsel. Again, I don't think it's a regulation that you have one, but
We
again,
have some- we
we're
have
gonna
some-
be buying this bond. And like I said, we work with all the bond counsels. They know how to put the documents together.
Yeah, we have one we already work with, so.
Okay, yeah, so again, I think, we can fit into that model.
Well, and just a comment, if you have a local lender that is able to provide a competitive rate, maybe you want to use a guaranteed loan. Have USDA use the guaranteed loan program to do this. I mean, that is an option, and that way you do business with a local bank, and there's maybe some political advantages to that. I don't know. But that's, again, another idea just to mull over, commissioners.
So if we apply, are you going to go through this thing and say, hey, listen, here's some options? We know there's a potential grant option if we can score enough points.
Right.
But are we going to be able to look at all these options, including this one?
Yeah, again, if you want to look at a guaranteed loan, we could definitely look at that option. See
We're
what
still
that-
stuck with trying to find a lender that will.
Yeah, and again, we work
Maybe
with
it'll-
the banks in the area. They
Yeah.
do a lot of interim financing for us on these water and sewer projects. So
Mhm.
that's how we get the local banks involved.
Okay.
So do any of the regulations go away if you're just a guaranteer instead of a actual writer? Because I know you're making this sound pretty simple, but I sat on the Priest River City Council for 15 years, so it's not that simple. It's a process.
It's
Let's
a
put it that
process.
way.
It's a process, and that's, again, going to a bank's a process.
Right.
Okay, and so they're going to require the same things that we're going to require. They're going to require a plan, that's put together that you could probably maybe get away with without doing the environmental work.
That's where I was angling at.
But they're also going to charge you fees.
And the SWIP and all that other stuff that's out there. I mean, it just seems like there's a multitude of things to go through to get to the government approval standing. And then a multiple of engineers that have to look over the project and stamp it, DEQ and your engineers. And it's a process. I mean, it's a lengthy process.
Well,
So does that get rid of it if you go with just a guarantee?
Because you're talking about DEQ, which is regulatory,
Right.
and no matter who you finance.
That's true.
You're going to
Very
have to
true.
go through DEQ. They're going to have to approve. Our approval is piggybacked on their plans. You submit plans and specs to both of us, and it takes us about the same time as it does the DEQ to go over these. So again, that length of time is already in the equation. But again, we could look at a guaranteed loan that may save you some money on the environmental. You talk to the local banks. We've worked with Mountain West, we've worked with Columbia, we've worked with First Interstate. Again, got a pretty good relationship with all those banks and bankers. And
Yeah, and I would jump in here too. I mean, in terms of just the DEQ review, these are pre-established transfer stations. I mean, unless there's something environmentally out there that we're not aware of, it should be a very straightforward process. It's really a box check through the health department and DEQ.
It's an
We
improvement,
did the same
actually.
thing for Twin Falls County, for example, added a new building, did some improvements like you guys want to do at Colburn. And it was,
Yeah, actually, I think DEQ would find it favorable because we've had some issues with it.
absolutely, they would be excited to see some
Right.
improvements.
Yes, to see
As
some
long
improvement.
as you're not on the bank of the creek or next to the lake.
Correct. And if you are, it might even be more important, to make sure it's contained. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, anyone? Melissa, anything? Nothing? You sure? I would like to pick on Melissa because she rarely talks, so. Commissioners, anything else you want to query about?
No, we know it's coming.
I have a question
One way or
just about
another.
the general process as far as where the bond vote falls in the process of obtaining the loan monies. So, like, we're kind of up against the deadline here.
Yeah, it may not be November.
And we don't really have, we have our CIP that might be turned into a preliminary engineering, I would say. So could we go and do the bond vote at this time without really our preliminary engineering report, our facility plan all done?
you could do that. You could go to a vote without that.
The problem is, where would we get our numbers?
Well, with the CIP has some numbers, we wouldn't really have much presentation material for any kind of public meeting or anything that someone could look at other than the CIP. I'm just wondering, like, I guess I'm just kind of looking at the overall scope, like, okay,
Timeframe.
what do we need to do here in order to?
Yeah, it may not be still spring till we get it on the ballots.
You can throw it out there, but the problem is if you throw it to the voters and then you can't
Give them a
make
number.
that actually happen, what you're saying,
Yeah.
and your overview is like, oh, well, we think it's gonna be this, and then it's not, you're
Right.
gonna get crucified. But
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
so you have to bring pretty good information, otherwise you shouldn't bring it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think what we need to do is
You don't have to be
get
perfect, but
we need to get the scope developed. We need to have an actual, pretty hard cost. Look at what the final financing is. Look at what the impact's going to be for the fee,
Right.
if there is one. And then we can notify the public to listen, here's what we need. Here's going to be the fee adjustment or not.
hopefully not.
Yeah, hopefully not.
So in my mind, that would mean that we would have our engineering report, our facility plan, all that stuff, our engineered plans all done.
Mhm.
I mean,
Usually it goes to preliminary.
Yeah.
So it's,
yeah,
I would say that the work that we've done, collectively is probably conceptual 20%. We probably need to go up a little bit higher,
yeah,
especially with Colburn, for example. And then just sharpen the pencil a little bit more on those costs with the more advanced design, especially now with where we are with the pandemic and how that might affect costs, so be conservative in that estimate.
yeah.
And then carrying that forward with the financial model, which we presented to you guys,
Mhm.
and seeing how and what you want to do when. Do you want to throw everything in there or focus just on Colburn? And how does that influence your fees now and into the future?
Yeah.
Man, don't put all that work into something that's gonna be outdated in 5 to 10 years.
Well,
that was
Yeah.
the plan actually looks well in the future, so.
the problem is you don't want to put a large amount of money into engineering if you can't float this thing, because if it gets bombed by the voters, then you've spent a whole lot of money and you're not going to get a return on that.
Yeah, that's kind of the risk though with anything like this, so.
Well, that's why I say you don't go to full blown
Right. I don't think we need to.
working drawing.
Yeah, we just need preliminary drawings. We can re-rig the CIP and then just make sure we update the numbers.
I guess that's the point I made, was made.
Yeah.
We don't want to
like you said, it was kind of big picture. I think we just need to come in a little bit more and try to sharpen that up a little bit so that you guys going to the voters can present the information and feel more comfortable with.
Yeah, and I think your designs are more than like a 30,000 foot. I mean, it kind of drills down. But I don't know.
Yeah,
There's,
yeah, the cost, you know, the better, the tighter the design, the better the cost.
Right.
That's my thinking. Yeah, so that's like just, it's, you don't want to pay for the whole thing up front and then not be able to get it, but at the same time, you don't want to have your numbers, you don't want to miss something.
You don't want to be way off.
what kind of limitations to financing are there? What kind of dollar numbers are we talking about? What do you think we can finance up to? Is there a limit?
Well, there's really no limit at all.
Okay.
You know, again, it depends on how much money we get. Loan money is easy to get. You know, it's the grant funds that are limited.
Right.
And we can always go back to our national office and request additional loan money from the state, which we do every year. Just because there's more projects that we have money for, really. But that's an easy process for us.
Because one of my thoughts is that we bite the bullet and we do the improvements that we have slated in the CIP pretty much all at once. Because it's not going to get cheaper. It's not going to be cheaper tomorrow to do.
No,
So we may as well do it now, get the financing, start paying this thing off, because we're going to have to go back at this again in another 10 years or so, depending on how our county grows. So I'd rather see us do them all at once, get it done. You know, that way we have the fixed amount. We're paying it off.
In Commissioner, I think the hope is, and what you guys are doing is you're looking out beyond and being able to accrue those funds
Right.
so that you don't need to get a loan.
Yeah, we don't need a loan
Right,
next
you have
time.
the revenue to be able to set aside. This is just to get you up over that hump. Like you said, you haven't done any infrastructure improvements since '96.
Right.
So once you get that going and you can pay for that loan and then continue to accrue
Right.
that money.
As opposed to doing, okay, we'll do Coburn first, and then we'll wait and do the next. I mean, I really think we just got to bite the bullet and get it done. Because then what it does too, is it shows a little bit of balance within the county. I mean, outside of the inside baseball aspect that we know that we're transporting things here and there that it's costing us more money. There's also the political side of it, the look that the citizens of the county get. Hey, you're improving Colburn, but you're not doing anything at Idaho Hill. You know, so I think we need to look at that bigger picture and go, okay, let's hit everything all at once so everybody sees some type of forward motion.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Well, the needs are there in every one
Right.
of those areas, so.
So question for you, John, in terms of the bonding and requirement for the design and the build, is there a design build option on that where it can help to streamline the process?
we could look at design build, you know.
I don't know if you guys are even interested in that. That's what we did for Twin Falls County.
Yeah.
And, it worked out really well. If you get a good team on board,
Right, and that's the key. I don't have a problem with design build as long as we're very specific with some of the details.
that's
important.
the key.
Because that's usually where you see a problem with design build is the owner's not specific enough, and then you get whatever the builder gives you.
Yeah, and it depends on how you want to procure those services because a lot of engineering firms, for example, don't want to spend all the time up front designing it to win the project. It's based on quals, and then you bring the team in and they can design build
Mhm.
and then be an extension of your team, like we did
Right.
for this. With Spencer, he has time, he can help to design it.
Yeah, we could actually write that right in the spec for the design build as well, so.
Absolutely, but yeah,
As a
that might be an
qualifier.
option to save some money and accelerate this a little bit for you too.
Mhm. Good idea. Did you write that down, Spencer?
And we can also do a construction manager type of construction process.
Sure.
Where you interview contractors.
Mhm.
And they work with your design team to put together a project.
Right.
Which we've done that with several projects.
Okay, it's given us some stuff to think about and some.
Yeah, because it isn't like we're building a 10-story building or something. I mean, it's pretty easy stuff.
The design build, I think, might be a good idea for some of our site improvements like Idaho Hill and Dick and Sheet sites where we're just looking to dress it up,
Right.
pave it, do some, structural improvements to the.
Yeah, because like Commissioner Conley said, we're not building a 10-story building.
Yeah, yeah.
Most of this
so-
stuff is pretty,
It's the whole garbage.
you got a steel builder and you got somebody that's good at concrete,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, this stuff is pretty ordinary.
Okay. Any other questions?
So
Every time I say that, he comes up with a question. That's awesome.
It's serious.
So the funding that you got, I know you guys, can you remind me how you allocate funding? Is it in November that you assign the funding for the following fiscal year?
Well, every state gets an allocation, okay, based on semester in its national form. And so Idaho gets X amount of dollars, it's generally about 13 or 14 million, okay, every year. That includes grant. So, you know, we go out and we'll spend that money because we spend it every year. And then we have the option, it's called pooling date. And that's generally middle April. And if you haven't spent half your funds by middle April, they all go to the national office. And then other states can make requests of that money, depending on what type of projects they have and how many points they score.
And that's okay.
So again, that's where you're competing for that grant with, you know, at the national level. You know, solid waste projects don't, you know, they don't point out for, you know, other cities. You know, little cities, you know, point out the best, you know, communities in Apple, that we're doing up a project in Apple right now, Mullen, or some of those communities that are under 1,000 people, and NHI's really low.
And that's for water, wastewater.
Yeah,
A lot of water.
a lot of water, and you know, there's violations in the water and sewer, you know, where, you know, you have to meet your Clean Water Act and the discharge permit, or your drinking water standards and that kind of stuff. And if you're in violation of those, that obviously scores more points in our system too. So, yeah, that's why solid waste got really done a lot.
We talk about grants and the opportunity for grants. I know that you can't tell us if we do the grant, but are we talking $100,000, $1 million, $5,000? I mean,
Well, you know,
typical or something.
in our waterways, 75-25 is a rule of thumb. I mean, that's what we tell communities at this stage. You know, we can get you a 75% loan and 25% grant. You know, up to a point. If it's a $10 million project, that changes the numbers a little bit, you know, but I don't know what ballpark we're looking at.
What were we like at 5 million or something like that? 8 million.
Yeah, so 8 million, again, you know, we're not going to be able to bring 25% grant on a project. If it's a $2 million project, you know, we could go $1.5 million loan and $500,000 grant type of thing. The more grant money we have to allocate, the harder it gets for us, because that's the precious one.
And that 8 was based on our kind of a fat guess.
That was our CIP estimate.
The high side of the, because there was 3 different, right?
Yeah, there were 3
different-
There was a middle, there was a low, there was a
Yeah.
high. And it's
That was the
And so
high
we can
side.
probably refine that number down, but it's
Oh, it
not.
was the middle?
for all, not just Colburn.
Yeah, that was for the whole thing.
Includes contingency.
Right.
Well, it's,
Yeah.
it's order of
20.
magnitude. You
Seemed
know,
like a 20% contingency. It was a high
plus,
number.
yeah, plus 100% minus 50 level, I mean, pretty high level.
No, that's typically what it's, is 20% of the stage. Yeah, contingency, it's projects.
Okay.
It just, you know, you pass a bond, let's say for $500 million, and the bids come in at 7, you know, you can leave that bond on the table,
Mhm.
you know, and just close it for the 7 million. Okay. You can-
Correct.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else?
I don't think so. Anything else?
Anybody out in TV land that,
Kevin? You ever heard from Kevin? I don't know if you ever.
Kevin, you out there? Okay.
There,
Yes,
just
great.
listen.
Can you hear me?
We didn't know if you're out mowing the lawn or what was going on.
Nope. And one thing I was going to add about the engineering submittals and DEQ is the DEQ submittals, we would probably try to work with what needs to be submitted for DEQ to make sure that there's not a whole lot of more effort needing to be put into it, so that what DEQ needs and then what RD needs would be similar. And we could probably get in touch with DEQ to at least try to make these different project documents jive timing wise. I know from the DEQ standpoint, typically a transfer station to get through from the very beginning to the end of the approval process is about 6 months to a year, depending upon the timing of all the public comments and whatnot. And then rule developments, we would try to get it within that same time frame as well.
Even with an existing transfer station, what we're doing is improving it. It's going to take 6 months to a year.
No, that's a brand new transfer station, is 6 months to a year.
Okay.
Yeah, I hate to keep bringing up Twin Falls, but I think it's a good example. We added a new transfer building and site improvements, and it was a matter of a couple months.
Okay. Yeah, that's us over here.
It really went through the health department with the DEQ, really do MOU. So.
Okay.
Does that sound about right, Kevin?
Yeah, it is. Yep. And so ultimately, I think from the rule development standpoint, we would do our best to work with you guys to help get it through and work within the scope of what DEQ needs and what you guys need, and make this thing happen as quickly as we can. And we would work with whatever engineer you chose to ensure that happens.
Okay. Just waiting. There's one more in there.
Got one more.
I think I'm tapped out.
Are you? Wow, you went down pretty easy. Okay. Okay, well, with that, if there's no further questions or comments, we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 10:07.
Thank you, commissioners.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
Yeah, thank you.
Coming up.